Paris, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. A monument-studded destination where Haussmannian architecture surrounds you, cafes are on every corner, and a place where countless people dream of moving to. But what's it really like to live in Paris? Well, today I'm talking to Justine, a Franco-American who will take us through habits, routines, and ways of living that you won't find in any guidebook. So we're here with Justine, who's going to tell us a bit about life in Paris.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Justine. I am a French-American. I grew up in California. My parents are both French, originally from Lyon, and they moved to the US for their jobs. And it was like, I kind of Uno reversed because it was like a dream of theirs to live in the US. And so I grew up there for 24 years, and I always knew I wanted to experience life in France and see kind of what French culture was like within France. So I decided to do my master's in Paris and kind of see what happened. And I loved it so much that I stayed. So yeah, I've been here for 4 years.
Have you ever lived in France before?
I have not. I spent a lot of summers here, but I had never lived.
So obviously that's really different from just visiting as a tourist. So what's been the biggest culture shock of moving to France?
I think the biggest has been having to get all of my grocery items from different places. There's not like a main store like Target or Trader Joe's for US folk where you can get everything you need in one place, just depending on like the quality of the items you want. And then also customer service. That's been a big one that still to this day shocks me.
Oh, okay, because that's something I think is a stereotype.
Yeah.
It's like customer service is just not the same. Why do you think there is this difference?
So in the US, you definitely work for tips. So I think people are generally more cheery, but also know that the way that they treat you will kind of depend on what they get at the end of the service. And it's also part of your work. So if somebody sees you, like if your boss sees you not very kind with someone, your job could be on the line, and it's a lot easier to lose your job in the US. Here, they get paid no matter what. And I think French people in general are a little bit more frank and honest. They don't have this kind of like polite exterior that's not BS, but like kindness. So they are just more real, and sometimes they don't have a good day, and that can come out on you.
I think that is nice though, because I think sometimes you go to North America, because I'm Canadian, and people will be really nice, but you don't know if that's a niceness because that is just forced politeness by society.
Yeah.
Because when French people are nice to you, it's a genuine connection that you're having.
Very true.
I think a lot of people say that French people romanticize life. They also complain a lot, but do you think that there's some truth to the romanticism of just everyday living?
I do.
And the small things?
I think it's like the joie de vivre. Like people really take their time. Even in the corporate world, when I was working in corporate, people take breaks to go have a coffee and catch up with a coworker, or take 2-hour lunches. And you know, if it is sunny, they'll go out and sit outside. If you go to any park on a sunny day, you'll see people laying out and just like absorbing the sun or reading and enjoying the moment and like really celebrating that you're allowed to slow down and just like enjoy each moment for what it is. And that's something in the US that we don't see often because it's a very go, go, go culture. So I appreciate that.
That is a bit of a cliche that France is a nation of complainers. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Oh yeah, 100%, like no doubt there is truth to that. I've found myself complaining more because I live here, and I try and remind myself that I think the complaining comes from a place of knowing what's good. I think French people really know what's good and what exists to be fair and just and right, and so when it's not, they're very quick to complain about it and like stand up for what they think is right. And that cliche kind of manifests into the protests that we have. I think French people are notorious protesters. Like anything that they don't find just or right, they will stand against it. People think French people like have a lot of arguments, but they're more discussions, and it's an open space to really discuss what you believe without it being anything against the person or what they believe.
But that has also led to amazing workers' rights and things like that.
100%.
So it has led to a lot of positive things.
Yeah, I think when you see what it's led to, you understand that it's something to admire rather than like complain about.
What do you think is the best thing about living in Paris?
I think so many things. Like there's a reason I'm here for like long term, and I'm not planning on going back. Just everywhere you look is art. I love going outside and knowing that like I have everything available to me. And yeah, I can step foot. I live very centrally, so that's lucky on my part. And I have like 5 different supermarkets I can go to, and I can go on a walk and everything's beautiful. And if I want to go anywhere, I can. And I've used the metro. I mean, I don't own a car. I haven't driven in 4 years, which is crazy to think about. Because in California, I had a car and I needed to use it every day.
And something a lot of people do in Paris that I am personally scared to do is cycle. I prefer to just walk.
Yeah, you cannot pay me to get on a bike. I am extremely afraid of getting hit by a car because I've seen it numerous times. And I just know that I'm a clumsy person. Like me on a bicycle feels comical. So I respect anyone who does cycle, and it is really convenient. I have friends who cycle and get from A to B in like 10 minutes, whereas walking would take like maybe 30.
Luckily there's the metro or the bus.
Yeah, exactly. I'd prefer the metro or the bus any day.
And something that's always difficult when you're moving to a new country is making new friends.
Yeah.
And I know from personal experience that making friends with French people can be really difficult because my husband has the same friend group since he was 10.
Yes, my partner also. I feel like the new friends are via work for him. But I would say that it is quite difficult to make friends in France, especially Paris, because it's kind of a city lots of people move to, and even like Parisians who have lived here their whole lives have groups of friends since they were little. And if they've moved into the city from somewhere else, they start new, but it's typically through work or like a hobby. So my biggest suggestion would probably be like get involved in something that sparks your curiosity, because you'll meet people through that. I've also met people via mutual friends or through social media. So most of my closest friends are actually through TikTok.
Oh, wow.
I think social media has like boomed in like a beautiful way in that sense.
Something that's a bit cliche about North American culture is that people talk very, very loudly. Do you think there's any other cultural faux pas that might happen?
I think, so talking loudly is for sure something I've noticed, and I get like secondhand embarrassment when I'm with like a group of like friends who are visiting me, and I can just see that they're taking up a lot of room. And I think it happens also like whenever we're eating like out at a restaurant. It sounds terrible to say, but I feel like just eating culture is just not the same. So here, restaurants will close between like 2 and 7 p.m. And a lot of Americans are used to eating really early, around like 5 or whenever they're hungry. So they're very quick to complain about things not being open and not adjusting to that kind of life.
Something I'd love to talk about now is apartment living and any cultural shocks that you've had coming from maybe a larger place of living to a smaller one, because apartments here are very small.
Yeah, they really are. I grew up like half of my life in an apartment and half in a house. And I would say that the apartment was just because my parents had both grown up in apartments as well, so it was normal for them. And in the house, we had definitely a lot more space. I think the biggest culture shock is like never having alone time truly. I live in a 1-bedroom with my partner, so when we're both home, there's like nowhere you can just go and be by yourself where they're not gonna come in the room and disturb you. And so I kind of look forward, I think both of us look forward to when we do have outings, because we're like, oh good, I have the place to myself, I can just be. So that was definitely a big adjustment. Another one is stairs. Not every single building has an elevator, so having to do lots of stairs.
And even when they do have an elevator, they can be so small.
So small.
You can't even fit things that you might need in there. You can fit like 2 suitcases and not 2 people.
Yeah, no. And if the 2 suitcases are there, you definitely aren't going in with the 2 suitcases.
You send it up and then run up to find it at the end. And one other thing that I think a lot of people would be shocked by, even though we have really hot summers in Paris, there's no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Is that something you grew up with?
It is something I grew up with in Northern California, because most houses weren't built with air conditioning, and my parents found no use in building one or putting one in because they're used to no air conditioning. That was more of a shock for me in Paris, because the summers here are a lot hotter than California, at least Northern California. Northern California, you get up to Celsius, maybe 30, 35, and there's a breeze because we're right by the ocean. But here, it's pretty stagnant heat.
Even though you're living in these really small apartments, obviously you're surrounded by beauty and a bit of a living museum every day. Like, do you appreciate that more?
Yes. 100%. I think the idea of not having like a backyard or a terrace isn't as prevalent because you just have Paris outside of your front steps. And something that I really appreciate is there are laws in Paris that are meant to upkeep their buildings so that they are beautiful at all times. And that's why you'll see scaffolding everywhere also at all times. It just kind of moves from space to space. But because they're required to, you know, clean their buildings and repaint, and every day if you own a business, you have to clean in front of your sidewalk to make sure it's nice for people to come visit. So I do really appreciate that they have this like art and love for cleanliness, beauty. Some people think it's kind of presumptuous to want things to be beautiful, but that's something that I really appreciate about living here, is that it is beautiful everywhere I go, and there's a reason, because people care and they make it happen.
Have you found anything at the nice Brocantes of Paris?
Yes. So I've always been like a lover of vintage and thrifting, and it's just a different level in Paris because things are so much older, and I think that the items are just so beautiful. So I discovered the Brocantes, or like French flea markets, and I think like I would say probably 40% of the decorations I have in my house come from Brocantes.
Oh wow.
Which like basically ignited this passion of mine to find as much as I could, because it becomes kind of a treasure hunt. If you go to a brocante, you know it's kind of like this big mess and you've got to rummage through, and you can really find some cool treasure. So I've kind of created my own business for it as either a sourcer, or I will find treasures myself and put them up for sale. It's really new. I started it like a month and a half ago.
The next thing I wanted to discuss is any food and drink habits that you might have picked up since you came to France. And the first one is, obviously you grew up with French parents, but you did grow up in America. So have you changed your morning routine, like what you eat at breakfast?
That is a good question. I think I have, for sure. My parents still kind of do the classic French breakfast with like bread and butter and jam, and then some fruits and like a coffee.
Oh, because a lot of people think that French people eat croissant every day. Like,
oh yeah.
Is that
no? In my experience and what I've noticed, people either don't eat or they eat, you know, like bread at home or yogurt or something. They definitely don't eat croissants every day.
Moving to Paris, do you find that you have changed your shopping habits at all? i.e., do you eat more seasonally? Do you go to the boulangerie every day? Things like that.
Yes. So I think when I first moved here, I wanted to be kind of in this like cliche Parisian moment where I would go get seasonal baguettes and like try and have that at home. Now, I think for like the last 2 years, I don't eat bread at home anymore, just because I found that that's not necessary for my eating habits. But I definitely shop more frequently. So I do find myself at the grocery store, like, or at the market. Like we have a weekly market in our neighborhood. So I'm out and about like probably 4 days out of the week trying to find different meals, because things are fresh and I want to buy them fresh if I can. And it doesn't change, you know, my outings at all. I don't have to like get in my car and go to the grocery store for the week. So I do love that. And seasonally, absolutely. I get all my produce at the market or at this like primeur is what we call them. So it's like a specialty shop that only sells fruits and veggies.
Are there any other reasons, other than wanting to have really fresh produce and having a small fridge, that you do shopping so often?
Yes. Small fridge is a nice touch, because I did grow, like for 2 years, have like a mini fridge as my fridge. So that was a huge reason. But I do eat out a lot more frequently, just at restos. I have a lot of friends who are are chefs or like in the food scene, and there are so many amazing restaurants that like nobody knows about that have like specialty chefs and things. So if I hang out with friends, one of our activities, because our places are so small, is to go out and we share a meal together at a restaurant or try a new bar. So I like to frequently buy when I know I need it. That way, if I'm going out one night, I don't have something I need to finish and like make as soon as possible before it goes bad.
I'd also love to talk to you about fashion and beauty, because obviously you look great, but have you changed how you dress at all since you moved here?
Yes. Coming from California, they're really big on athleisure. So I think I lived in leggings and like just like sportwear, or just like a jeans and a sweatshirt. And when we would go out, it was a little bit more all out. So I would wear like really nice dresses and heels, and you could drive everywhere. So you knew you weren't walking in the heels as long.
And they're on cobblestones.
Exactly. It's like flat flat sidewalks. And then also just like full glam. I think I would do my makeup a lot more frequently in California, especially when I lived in LA. Here, I noticed people prioritize skincare over makeup. And so I kind of made that switch. And ever since I've been happier with how my skin looks, I wear a lot less makeup. And then here, that's kind of like a faux pas, or like something that highlights the fact that you're not from France, is wearing athleisure out unless you're going to do sport. So I've catered my fashion styles a little bit more towards the French, where it's just kind of like a basic jean, a nice top. We don't know what the weather's going to be like. It might rain later, so like a light trench because it's still warm out. So yeah, I definitely think a lot more about what I'm wearing and less about what I'm putting on my face in terms of makeup.
Obviously, you've been living in Paris for a few years now.
Yes.
So what is the one place that you have to go to before you leave Paris? And it can't be something like the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, actually, I'd recommend people not go to the Eiffel Tower when they visit, because it's just so far away from things, and you see the Eiffel Tower from afar, and I think that's the most beautiful. I'm quite in love with the neighborhood in Montmartre, and even though that is a touristy space, I recommend spending like at least half a day there, and not just to go see Sacré-Cœur, but really to explore the neighborhood of Montmartre, because it's so beautiful and there's so many hidden streets and really like underrated restaurants, and you feel like you're outside of Paris, but in Paris, like on this hill with a gorgeous like view. And kind of my ritual when I go is I go up to, the Sacré-Cœur, and I come down the little streets, and then I like to go walk down Rue de Martyrs, which is near like the Pigalle area, where there are also a lot of cool bars and restaurants. So just kind of wandering and getting lost, that is definitely an area I recommend people go. I think people avoid because it's like on a hill and kind of far away, but it's one of my favorites.
And obviously you go traveling a lot around France now that you live here because it's so easy to get places.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere that you really recommend that people go to?
Oh my gosh, so many that I haven't been to and that I have. I think just somewhere that's really special to me is like Provence, and being able to have a car and road trip around the little villages. They're so beautiful and so quaint, and it's just like, I don't know, I did that last year over the summer, and it's one of my favorite memories, just because whoever you're with, it's like a wonderful memory, and you can stop off anywhere on the side of the road and see something beautiful, like a field of lavender, a field of poppies, a random village you didn't even have on your list, but it ends up being so beautiful. So for sure, Provence is my number one.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. How can people find you if they want more information?
Yes, so you can follow me on my personal Instagram, which is Justine_Fanget. It'll be linked in the description. And then also, if you like this kind of content, I do have my own podcast called Pardon Our French on Spotify and Apple Music. And on Instagram, it's POF_podcast. And if you do like brocante finds or European vintage, this is one of my most prized possessions, an umbrella that I found. It's Il Marchesato, which is an Italian brand, and I got this for 20 euros, but it's worth 300 online. So I do try and find some cool treasures like this one. And if you have any sourcing needs or wants, I can definitely try and find whatever your inspiration is.